If you're watching this video, you are probably curious about chiropractic care and how it can help you and your family. So let's explore what chiropractic is all about and how it works. A chiropractor is a healthcare professional who specializes in the health and function of the spine and nervous system. Because of this focus on the spine, many people think chiropractors can only help with problems such as back pain, neck pain, and headaches. And it is true that chiropractors can often help with these things, but there is so much more to chiropractic than just pain. Chiropractic care is really about total health and well-being. It's about helping people to feel great and get the most out of life by functioning at their optimal potential. The spine is there to protect the spinal cord, which is part of the central nervous system. The spine is like a set of armor made up of segments so that it can bend and move naturally with the body. A spinal segment consists of 2 vertebrae and the joints that connect them. There is a disc between each vertebra that acts as a cushion. Underneath that armor, a whole lot is happening. Messages travel from around the body, up the spinal cord, and into the brain. The brain processes those messages and sends replies back down the spinal cord to tell the body how to respond. The central nervous system is one big information highway, and it carries vital messages to every part of your body. Sometimes the wear and tear of everyday life can impact the spine and cause spinal segments to move in a way that is different to normal, in a dysfunctional way. That wear and tear can happen gradually, such as from bad posture, or it can happen suddenly, which is common with sports injuries. And because of the close relationship between the spine and the nervous system, everyday strains can actually impact the flow of information and communication between the brain and the body. Messages may not be delivered to the brain, or they may be inaccurate. When that miscommunication occurs due to abnormal movements of the spine, chiropractors call this a vertebral subluxation or a chiropractic subluxation. You might hear it again from your chiropractor, so now you know what it means. By making fast, gentle adjustments to the spine, chiropractors restore its natural movement. If the central nervous system is like the engine of your body, a chiropractor acts like a mechanic, tuning the spine and central nervous system so that your body can run like a race car. Just keep in mind that as you are adjusted, you may hear a popping sound that can seem a bit strange. In fact, it's completely harmless. It's just the release of gas from between spinal segments, and it's no more significant than any other release of gas from the body. So are you ready to supercharge your engine? Did you know that your brain and central nervous system are constantly changing? It's quite amazing. From one day to the next, your brain is not the same. This is what scientists call neural plasticity. So what's the cause of this change? Well, to start with, your brain receives a constant supply of messages about your body and the external environment from the sensory organs. That's your eyes, your ears, your nose, tongue, skin, and so on. With this information, your brain maintains a 3D map of your body and keeps tabs of what's going on outside of your body. Your brain needs to interpret all of this data from your senses. It translates the information it receives based on what it's learnt from your past experiences, as well as its expectations for the future, its preferences, and more. You could call this the brain's bias. There is basically a lot of background processing that happens under the radar. So how you or your brain sees a situation may not be entirely accurate. That means your experience isn't 100% based on reality, but is instead a perception of reality. let's look at an example of how the brain fills in the blanks. Look at this picture and consider which square is darker, square A or square B? Which is darker now? It's incredible, isn't it? Your brain doesn't just see what the eyes tell it. It interprets what the eyes tells it, based on other information it has already stored up. In this case, you see square A as darker than square B because square B is in the shadow of the green cylinder, while square A is outside the shadow. Based on your brain's past experience, it will decide for you that if a square in a shadow reflects the same amount of light as a square outside the shadow, then it must be a lighter shade of grey. So what happens if your brain's map of the body is inaccurate, or if it's interpreting information based on faulty perceptions? It may mean that your brain responds to environmental cues ineffectively. But how would you know if your brain's map of the body, or its knowledge of the environment, was inaccurate? You may find that you become a bit clumsy, that you stub your toe often, or catch your elbow on door frames. You may find that your golf swing is out, or that your concentration is just not what it used to be. Or you may be overreacting emotionally to a situation. In the next video, you will find out how chiropractic care can help reset the function of the brain and the central nervous system, improving the accuracy of your brain's map of the body and the environment so that you can operate at your best. We know that your brain receives information about your body from the environment, from your sensory organs such as your eyes, your ears, and your nose. But did you know that the muscles in your body are also sensory organs? As your body moves, muscles stretch, and this information is sent to your brain so that it knows what your body is doing. When you think of muscles, you probably think of your biceps and triceps. You won't necessarily think of the small muscles close to your spine and skull. These small muscles do in fact play a very important role. They tell your brain what your spine is doing, which represents what the core of your body is doing. But if your spinal segments begin to move in a dysfunctional way, for example due to an injury or bad posture, that communication between your spinal muscles and your brain becomes distorted, which means you have a communication breakdown between your brain and your body. If your spinal segments aren't moving correctly, it may cause background noise for your brain, or your brain might not get adequate information about what's happening in your body, and will therefore have to fill in the blanks. Let's explore an analogy. Imagine for a moment that you've lived in a house all your life, and that in this house there's a long dark corridor with no windows. At the end of the corridor is an electrical fuse box. Now imagine that the circuit breaker to the lights has blown and you're pitched into complete darkness. Would you be completely helpless? Or could you walk down that corridor and turn the circuit breaker back on? Of course you could. You've lived there all your life. You would know roughly how long the corridor was and how wide it was. You would be able to get down there and turn the lights back on. Your brain is just as smart as that. It can function even if there's parts of the body that it cannot see. It will be able to function and control those parts of your body because of its past experience. But now imagine that before those lights went out, your kids had left a bicycle in that long corridor that you had not seen. What would happen in that scenario? You would likely fall and hurt yourself. And this is what happens when the brain is not fully aware of what is going on somewhere in your body or in your environment. You could end up having an accident or hurt yourself. This is where your chiropractor comes in. A chiropractor will gently adjust any dysfunctional spinal segments, or what they call vertebral subluxations, to restore healthy movement. This can improve the communication between your brain, your body, and the environment, It's a lot like rebooting a computer. When your brain can accurately perceive what's going on inside and out, it can better control your body for the situation at hand and move muscles in the right order. This means your body moves accurately, you have fewer accidents, and you can function and perform at your best. If you are visiting your chiropractor today because you have a symptom, such as pain, it is important to understand that troublesome symptoms don't appear out of thin air. They build up over time, like the analogy of straws on a camel's back. Hundreds of straws are stacked up over time, yet with the addition of the 1,000th tiny straw, the camel's back suddenly breaks. It's the same with symptoms. The problem can build up unnoticed over time. Then suddenly symptoms make themselves known in a big way. A symptom may only be the tip of the iceberg, with a much bigger problem lying under the surface. After all, a symptom is just a symptom. It's not the cause. Symptoms are a bit like the fire alarm going off to warn you that there is a problem. The fire alarm is not the problem, the fire is. So don't turn off the alarm and ignore the problem. Go find the cause and put out the fire. For a chiropractor to help you, it may take a number of visits. If your problem took time to build up to the level that it is today, more often than not, it will take time to resolve it too. It's also important to understand the symptoms may be due to dysfunction in a part of the spine that seems unrelated to the problem area. Here's an example. It may be that you have pain in your left knee. It's hard to imagine that this pain could have anything to do with your spine. But if your spine is not moving properly, it may be interrupting the flow of information from your leg to your brain and back again. And because of this, your leg may be receiving faulty messages from your brain, which means that your knee moves in a less than ideal way. And poor movement sustained over time can often create an imbalance in your body that may cause pain. Remember that your body is one big interconnected system. No part of it operates in isolation. The objective of chiropractic care is to restore healthy communication throughout your body and to maintain this communication over time, leading to better function, less accidents, and a healthier you. Did you know there is a stack of scientific research that has demonstrated chiropractic care can positively affect many different aspects of health and function? Let's explore some of this research. First up, let's take a look at a study involving muscle function for stabilizing the body, in which young healthy students were the research subjects. To set the scene, you need to know that the muscles deep in the abdomen are part of your core stabilizing system, and they need to be turned on before you lift your arm, so that you remain stable and don't injure yourself. This should happen very fast and without your conscious awareness. This is called feed-forward activation because it's pre-planned by the central nervous system. It ensures that movement of the body is balanced so that no injury takes place. The researchers found that in a group of 90 healthy students, 17 of them could not pre-activate their abdominal muscles before they moved their arms. This meant they were more prone to injury. 6 months later, the researchers tested 13 of the affected students again and found that they still couldn't do it. So what was going on with these students? To find out, they were given chiropractic assessments, and it was discovered that they all had tightness and restriction of joints in their pelvis. They were subluxated. So these 13 students received chiropractic adjustments of their pelvis. And guess what? There was an almost 40% improvement in their ability to pre-activate their core abdominal muscles. That's pretty phenomenal. This study is really important because it has big implications. These students had no existing pain at all, but scientists think that poor control of the core muscles may be the cause of people developing pain or sustaining an injury in the future. We know from other research studies that people who have low back pain often have delayed activation of their core abdominal muscles when performing various movements. We also know that the brains of many of these people with low back pain are much less aware of what is going on in their lower backs. This means that many people with low back pain, their brains are not receiving or processing accurate information from the small muscles close to their spine. So their brains have to guess what's going on and therefore may not be controlling the lower back in an ideal way, which can damage the back further. This is why chiropractic care is so important. It can restore proper communication between your brain and your body, so your brain knows accurately what's going on and can control your whole body in the best way possible.